So my question is, do you have experiences where you just know something, but you don't know why you know it? It just shows up from out of the blue, and you realize later on that you were right. Or someone walks in the room and you immediately feel this something off, and you can't really explain why, but you finally get some validation afterwards. If this has ever happened to you, then I want you to share in the comments. What is a moment that your intuition showed up for you and maybe you weren't really paying attention, but you know that that was intuition? Or maybe you don't trust it, and that's part of why you're here listening today, because that's what we're going to talk about today. You may or may not realize that this has been happening all throughout your life. Most people, I don't think, recognize themselves as intuitive. They think their intuition is that people that have intuition, that it's something special or rare or something that only certain people have. But after 25 years doing this work, I can tell you absolutely that is not the case. It's not rare. It's not reserved only for those that are super skilled, and it's not outside of your ability. So today on Soul Talk, we are going to explore what it really means to be psychic, the different ways that our intuition shows up for us in our everyday life, and also the 4 main intuitive channels, and how to begin recognizing what is happening within you and pay attention to it and learn to listen to it. Because once you start to see it, you begin to trust your intuition in a deeper, greater way, which I think is critical.
So self-service, that's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk, shine today.
All right, friends, welcome to Soul Talk, where spirit meets real life. This is a place where we explore real conversations and conscious choice and intuition and choosing light, even when life feels messy. So this conversation is here for you. Let's take a deep breath, call in our spirit team, and let's dive in, friends. All right. So what does psychic actually mean? That is a great first question. What does psychic actually mean? Because there's all kinds of ways people interpret the word psychic, and it hasn't gotten a great rap. Most of the times, people have really seen it as a negative because in history, well, it kind of was a negative. It wasn't something that was really talked about. I think it was scary. I think it was taught to be something that was unusual. It didn't fit in with the norm, and I think that a lot of times people can feel like it's something that psychic is only something that is, for the certain people. And then we have that negative connotation too that hasn't helped in any way. But really, you guys, let's just keep it simple and narrow it down to what it really is. And that is learning how to be aware of all of your senses, not just your external kind of 3D senses, but your internal intuitive senses. It's also about being able to be open to receive information intuitively. And every single one of us does that. And we all have that ability. Now, to varying degrees and levels, absolutely. Because really, yes, we experience it differently, but that difference isn't in who has it and who doesn't have it. The difference is more like who notices it, who trusts it, and who allows it to be in, who creates the space for it to actually come into our lives. Most people really are not disconnected from their intuition. They're disconnected from trusting their intuition. And if you've been one of those people that's been disconnected from trusting your intuition, I would love for you to share that in the comments, because it's always fascinating to me. Uh, and part of that's because I was one of those people also. Even though I'd had so many spiritual experiences and intuitive experiences throughout like my teen years, I also would have an experience and um, I just wouldn't believe it. And I think part of me is because as a teenager, I just didn't want to believe it, because it would be intuitive feelings about a particular person, like, Sonny, they're using you. And I'd be like, no way. That's not what's happening. Right. Things like that. And I didn't want to believe it. And so I was disconnected from trusting my intuition because I didn't like the outcome. And I wonder if that's ever happened for any of you, because that still happens. There's times where I intuitively know something and I I don't want to know it, right? I don't want to be tuned in that way. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to experience that. And we can have our little temper tantrum, but then at some point you have to go, okay, well, I do know it, and what am I going to do with it? And if I ignore it and shut it down, and how many have you had this happen? You ignore it, you shut it down, and then it just keeps popping back up, right? And it's popping back up for a reason. That's what we have to remember. It's popping back up for a reason. And that reason is because there's something for you to learn, to share, to grow from. And I think when we first start recognizing our intuition and we first start really stepping into it, it can be scary because, number one, you're not used to operating that way. Um, and I know for me now, this was 42 years ago now. But for me, a big piece of it was that I just wanted to be normal. I wanted to be like everybody else, and I wasn't. And I wasn't ready to, I knew that, but I wasn't ready to honor that. I wasn't ready to acknowledge that. And even though most of you that are watching now, you're adults, you're not 14, 15, 16 like I was during these times. um, it's still hard to maybe go against the way you were trained. Maybe if you were brought up in a religious background, then that might even be more challenging for you, because you might have been. I mean, come on, you guys. The word psychic, that was not a popular word. Certainly, when I was growing up, Salt Lake City, Utah, in the '80s, if you mention the word psychic, you would get side eyes, right? Like, what? Those are crazy people. And so I think oftentimes we want to fit in, and I don't really care how old you are. That can be something you want to fit in your circle. You want to fit in your family. You don't want people to think that you're weird. You don't want people to think that you've, lost your mind, things like that. All of those things happen. Or maybe too, you were having those experiences as a young person and you were trained to dismiss it, to ignore it, to deny it, to pretend that it wasn't there, and maybe not even to pretend it wasn't there, but just to not say anything. Just keep it quiet. Keep it quiet. The word psychic certainly has not been an acceptable word in most people's backgrounds. I think it's becoming more and more open, now that we do psychic investigation work, and there's so many um, people that have benefited from those tools, because doing mediumship work and things like that has helped create such healing for so many people, that it kind of has changed the context. Back like when I was growing up, when you thought about psychics, you thought about people that were, pretending to have these gifts to take advantage of people, to use their skills to get money from them. I think about like the spells that were being cast and going out in the desert and burying $200 underneath a particular rock so that the spell could come off. That's kind of how at least some of the background understanding I had, even connected to like the gypsy energy a little bit. And so whatever our framework is that we were brought up in, we have to change the perspective. We have to change what it actually means to be psychic. And that's my goal today is to help you to see it from a different perspective. So let's dive into that. So there's 4 main ways that we receive our intuitive guidance. Now, I'm going to use the word intuitive and psychic interchangeably because they really do mean the same thing. Not everybody agrees. Some people think psychic means that you're visual or that you can predict the future. So does intuitive. The difference, I think, the difference between psychic and intuition or being intuitive is ownership. It's you saying, I am a psychic. I am a psychic is strong, it's powerful, and it's owning your gifts. Most people that are kind of hiding are not going to say, I'm a little psychic. They might say, I'm a little intuitive, but they're not going to say, I'm a little psychic. And so psychic is kind of just empowering yourself, embodying and saying, this is who I am, what I am. Intuition is a little softer. And I don't have an issue if you want to call it intuition, if that feels safer for you, as long as you understand that they're actually the same. And I'm curious as to what you do call it. Like, what do you call that gift that you have, or maybe that you think other people have that you don't have? Do you call it psychic gift? Do you call it intuitive? Do you call it, sensitive? What term do you use? I'd love to hear that. Share that in the comments if you would. But the way that our intuition is showing up, and it shows up differently for every person because we all have different frames of reference. We all see things different. We look at things from a different perspective. We experience life in a different way. We have different lenses that we're looking through. So I'm just going to go through the 4 main ways that we receive our psychic abilities, our intuition, our communication with the spirit world. And as I talk about each one of these, see if you can identify with it. What is your connection to each one of these forms, gifts that your psychic intuitive abilities show up as? So the first one is clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is clear seeing, and this is when you have intuitive eyesight, not always external. So it's not like I'm watching, like I'd be watching something happening outside with my own eyes. Sometimes that's the case, but most of the time it's more of an internal. So you get like a movie screen playing on your forehead. Maybe you have a vision of something that's inside of your eyes. Like, so it's not something seen with your physical eyes, but then you can also, and a dreams that are prophetic or that are visitations that are actually are happening. They're actual visits from our loved ones in spirit. Clairvoyance is also around seeing energies and auras and orbs, all of those types of things, seeing past lives, anything that has to do with the visual perspective, whether it's internal or external, that is clairvoyance. It could be something that you imagined or you think you imagined, and then it turns out that it was right and it's accurate. That's actually not imagined. That was actually your psychic abilities. Images that you see that just flash in your mind, those really, really vivid telling dreams that you have. And a lot of times people are like, well, I'm just imagining this. It's just, I don't know where this is coming from. And because we can't explain where it's coming from, we feel like we're imagining it. That is not the case. What you're doing is you're perceiving something. You're not imagining it, you're perceiving it. Okay. I think that, in my younger years, I started having a variety of different experiences. So I was feeling and seeing and hearing and knowing like they were all coming at different times. And, the clairvoyant experience for me, one that stands out right now, I wrote about this a bit in my Invoking the Archangels book, was when I, uh, I used to live, when I was a teenager, I lived in a house that had like it wasn't a circular staircase, but it kind of went up and it had a landing and it went all the way up. So it was a sharp turn. And we had a spirit that lived, her energy lived in that little corner of the stairwell of the house. And people felt it. People that didn't even believe in any of this stuff, they felt it. But my brother and I actually could see her. It was a woman. We just called her the lady on the stairs. Because I don't know, that's what we did as kids. But we could see her it was very visual. And I wasn't used to seeing a lot of vision. I was more of a feeler. So that was unique experience for me at that time. It certainly has grown and developed over the years, but that intuitive vision that was coming to me, we would see her on the stairs and we would watch when people would walk up the stairs. And literally, like some of my family members would like run up the stairs once they hit that area. Like everybody kind of got what they called it the creeps. Um, and it wasn't creepy. She wasn't creepy. We found out later that she actually had died in the home years and years earlier before we'd ever lived in the home. So that's a clairvoyant experience to give you an idea of one of the ways that clairvoyance can show up. Now, clairaudience is when we're clear hearing. It's when we're hearing our messages. So this is psychic healing, intuitive hearing. It's hearing your messages, not always audibly, externally, like you're hearing my voice right now. Oftentimes it's more internal. So it's that thought that comes to you, but then you would almost say like a voice, like I heard a voice, or guidance that's coming through, maybe your angels or your guides or even a loved one in spirit, that you hear a voice say something to you, like, it's okay, calm down, or it's going to be fine, or take a right, or, turn left, or things like that. It can also be hearing your name called. That one's actually pretty common. A lot of my clients and students have had that experience, and they don't know where it's coming from. They don't know where to turn, but they hear their name very clearly. And then it can also be like an inner knowing, almost like words are being it's hard to explain, friends, but like words are being typed across the screen and you would say, I hear them or they're telling me, but it's not actually somebody using a voice. It's more coming in and being impressioned. Uh, but you'd use the term audible. And a lot of times it feels like it's your thoughts. It feels like you're just having these random thoughts, but it's internal and it's inside your ears are what are connecting it. And I'm going to try to explain that a little bit with a story that happened to me, because when I'm trying to give you descriptions of things, it's hard to give words, human words, to things that are not human based, right? These are spirit. This is the way spirit communicates with us. And so sometimes there just aren't words in the vocabulary that can help us. It can be challenging. But I'm thinking like, so Clairaudient experience that I can share, that happened, 20 years ago, was my cousin used to live with me. And one day I was in the kitchen and you can't see my front door from the kitchen. And so I was in the kitchen working and I heard her come in at noon. So I figured she'd come home for lunch, and she'd come in and she started telling me about her day at work and what had happened during that day. And, it was like I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes that she was talking and I was just listening. And then I started talking back, and then I heard the door open again. And so, my husband came walking in and he said, who are you talking to? And I said, I was talking to my cousin. And he said, well, where is she? I said, well, I don't know. I was just talking to her. Maybe she went upstairs. He's like, no, she's not here. Her car's not here. Nobody's here. And I said, well, I for sure was not talking to myself. Like I just had a full on conversation. She just told me about work. She told me this couple of things that happened. I told him whatever it was that she told me. And he was like, I don't know, but okay. And so then later on that afternoon, 5 o'clock, when she actually got home from work, she walked in and she started the same conversation. And I said, wait, I know what's going to happen. I know what you're going to say right here. And and so I told her what I had heard her say 5 hours earlier. And it was the exact conversation. That was a clairaudience. I heard it outside of my head like it was her voice. But I was tapping into something bigger, greater than what was happening in that exact moment. That was a clairaudient experience. Okay. Now, clairsentience. Clairsentience is the feeling. This is your intuitive or your psychic feeling. So these are actually the most common. You're going to feel the energy in the room and you feel it like um uh it's palpable. Like it could be you feel like this exuberant energy, or it could feel like this really heavy energy, right? And this is one that often you'll feel it like a pit in your stomach. You can feel it through emotions. So absorbing emotions, taking on other people's emotions, other people's feelings, other people's senses. This is not good. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's not good, because it's certainly not healthy for us to do that on a consistent basis. And so many of us, how many of you absorb other people's energy and emotions on a more consistent basis? Yeah, we want to work on that one. Gut feelings, where you just get this gut knowing. Your teenager tells you something, and you're like, I know there's something's not right here, right? Or you have somebody that you're listening to, maybe on TV or on social media or something. And you just get this gut sense, like, nope, that's not true. And then you do some research to discover that quite likely it wasn't true, right? So it's gut feelings. The sensation of tension and tightness, like you've ever been in a room with two people and you walk in and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I don't know what's going on here, but like, let me step out. That tightness, that tension. And also, if you're very sensitive, you can feel people's physical pain, right? You actually feel their physical pain. So they have problem with their tooth, let's say, and you have tooth pain. And what a lot of people kind of say around this is that they're just too sensitive. But what I want you to remember is, first of all, you're not too sensitive. You're aware. You're being more sensitive is just having a greater awareness. All right. And, I have so many examples of the feeling energy, and I'll share one with you. When I was speaking at an event for the psychic detective group that I work with, Find Me. And they'd asked me if I would volunteer my time and come and speak to this particular group. And I didn't even know what the group was. I just said, sure, I'll come and do it. And so my assistant had put the event on my calendar, and I had the address, and I showed up on a Tuesday night to go to this event that I actually had no idea what I was doing, but that wasn't unusual. That was normal for me, that I didn't, look into it. I was just going to show up. And I tend to, when I speak, do keynote speaking engagements or events or things like that. I'll have kind of a general topic of what I want to talk about. And I let spirit just kind of move through me so that I speak to the audience instead of speaking to what I think people need to hear in advance. And so that's what I did for this particular event, but I didn't even know what the organization was. So I walked in, and as I started walking in, I got in the elevator. And once I got in the elevator, I thought I was going to throw up. I'm like, oh my gosh, the energy, the density. And I was feeling so overwhelmed with heaviness and sadness. And the door opened, um, and I walked out, and I went into, and I thought I was going to get sick. So I went into the room where the meeting was going to be. And at the front of the door, it said, welcome parents of murdered children. And I was like, oh God, okay. I I felt the sadness, the pain, the loss, the just the heaviness, the grief. And so I went and put my stuff down. I went in the bathroom. I did get sick. And then I went back and did my work and did what I was supposed to do, right? And spoke to them and gave them some tools and some techniques to help them connect with their children, to be able to feel their presence more and recognize their energy. And it was a beautiful evening once I could let go of the energy that I was feeling. But it was certainly initially uh, shocking. My system wasn't ready for it. And so that's an idea of clairsentience, right? Then the last one is claircognizant. So claircognizant means clear knowing, and this is your psychic or your intuitive knowing. Now, this one is a little bit more challenging because there's no explanation. There's no understanding of why you know what you know. It's just clarity. You just know, and you know something without any kind of proof. It's kind of like it just pops in from out of the blue for no apparent reason, and you just know. And the way that shows up is like you have these quick decisions and you just know they're right. Or you hear something, you just know it's wrong. You don't even sit and try to figure it out. There's just this knowing that comes over you that's so strong that um it moves you to oftentimes make decisions quicker, and it's instantaneous. It's not something you're thinking about and then it comes to you. It literally just pops in from out of the blue for no apparent reason. And so the claircognizant, I think, a lot of people look at it and they think, "Oh, well, that was lucky. I just got that right," or lucky me that that information came to me. And that's the thing is it isn't luck. It's connection. It's information. It's awareness, and you're tapping into that. And there's claircognizant experiences. I think out of all of them, seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing, I think that the knowing can be the hardest one to trust because with the feeling, it's in your body. With the seeing, it's in your body. With the hearing, it's in your body. It's either internal or you're using your senses to connect with that externally. But with the knowing, you you have all of the thoughts that are in your head on a day-to-day basis. And I don't remember what they say, like what we have 80,000 thoughts a day. And then you have these knowings that are coming in too. And the work is to discern the difference between all the thoughts that are in your head and that knowingness, right? So I think oftentimes with the claircognizant, that can be the harder one to trust because there's so much in there along with everything else, right? So that is claircognizant. If I think about an experience I had with claircognizance, and I've had so many of them, but I had one experience, and this was on New Year's Eve, where I had made plans for my husband and my brother and I to go out on New Year's Eve, and we didn't normally go out. I don't think we'd ever gone out. So this was going to be like the first time we were going to go out and, go dancing and party for New Year's celebration. And I woke up that day before New Year's Eve, and something just said cancel the, and I think you had 24 hours or something. It was like $100 a ticket or something like that. And this was like 25 years ago. And something just said, just cancel this. And I just had this knowing, like, you're not going to go. And my head was like, well, why wouldn't I go? I'm excited about it. I want to go. But I had this knowing, like, just cancel. And so I did. I just canceled it. And I was a little bit frustrated. My brother was irritated with me. He's like, well, I really wanted to go. What's the deal? And I said, I don't know. I just don't feel like we're supposed to go. And I can't explain it. And the next morning we got a call that my grandmother, which was New Year's Eve, that my grandmother had gone missing. She'd had Alzheimer's and walked out of her care facility. And so obviously we uh, recognized then why we weren't going. And within a couple of hours of that, a phone call, they found her body. And so, of course, a day that most people were getting ready to celebrate the new year, of course, we were mourning um, the loss of my grandma. And so that was the claircognizant. There was just a knowing, and it was it was clear, right? That's how claircognizant happens. It just pops in. So out of all of those, friends, if you're listening, you've been listening, then I want you to share with me, seeing, hearing, feeling, or knowing, which one is your top? Like you're like, yep, this is me. And you might have experiences with all of them, but which one really stands out to you? I'd love to hear you comment on that. And if you want to share a little story around it, I always love to read the stories too. But uh, what is your strongest attribute, your strongest psychic ability or intuitive ability, depending on which one you like? Now, as you're sharing those, here's why we stop trusting it, or maybe just don't trust it in the first place. So most of us were taught that what we can trust are the things we see. If we see it, then it's real. But you guys, you can't see emotion, but emotions are real. You can't see how this cell phone connects to the next cell phone, but it happens and it's real, right? But most of us were taught to trust that, trust what we can see. We were also taught to trust logic, right? We were taught to look for proof that there are signs that will show you the direction, basically. And so you weren't really taught to trust what you couldn't explain, what you didn't necessarily understand or understand how it could happen. And so then what we do is we override our intuitive abilities. We override ourselves. We override our guidance and our connection to spirit. And we second guess ourselves. And we second guess ourselves because of how we were taught. No, it's nobody's fault because everybody was just doing the best they could. But most of us weren't encouraged to listen to that intuition, to listen to that gut sense, to listen to that feeling because it wasn't explainable. It didn't make sense to the adults. So how could it be real? And they didn't understand it themselves, right? And so then just as we're trained into that kind of cycle over time, we stop listening. And I think in a lot of cases, we stop listening to our intuition. We stop listening to that guidance. And then we put ourselves in circumstances and in situations that our intuition called us not to step into, that we did anyway because we didn't listen. And I wonder if that's true for any of you. I know it was true for me. I just had a thought pop up of an experience that I had that I think could have turned out really badly. Um, and it's kind of twofold because I didn't listen to my intuition and I went with a couple of guys that I'd met a couple of times. This was probably when I was 16. I went with them to a party that when we got to the party only ended up being like two of them and maybe two other guys, no girls. And my intuition when I was going said not to go. But, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be cool. Um, I didn't want to have them think that I didn't like them. One of the guys was super cute. And I wasn't invited to a lot of parties. I didn't have the normal teenage life like most kids do. And so, I didn't go to parties and dances and things like that like everybody else did. And so I really wanted to be a part of it. And so I ignored my intuition and I went. Um, and then when I got to the party and I realized that I was the only girl, my intuition spoke up really quickly. Like I could feel it. They wanted me to drink, and again, I wanted to be cool, but I hadn't really been somebody who had drank a lot. And so I think I had like a wine cooler. And then my intuition said to pretend like I'd fallen asleep. And so I did. I pretended like I fell asleep, and I wasn't asleep. One of the guys kind of snuggled right up to me and was trying to, make moves on me. And I just continued to pretend I was asleep. And then I think he just got, whether he got irritated or like, well, this isn't worth it. And so he left me alone. And then the next morning, I just got up early and snuck out of the house. And I think if I wouldn't have listened to my intuition, something not great could have happened, right? And I'm not suggesting that he for sure would have done anything, but there were 4 guys there and me, and they were all drinking, so that usually doesn't lead to great things. So this is some of the ways that we can actually start to, help ourselves when we learn to listen to our intuition. I'm curious if those are things that have happened to you. You guys have these experiences, these stories, these reminders that say, hey, pay attention to your intuition. I'm always reminding my students, pay attention to your intuition, friends. Listen to that gut feeling. It is there for a reason. It is there for a reason. So how can you start to recognize it? Number 1 is just awareness. You have to have awareness. And the way that you become aware is you have to be present. Presence is key, and it's hard. Uh, Most people don't know how to be present. Most people, especially nowadays, we're very distracted. Cell phones distract us, computers, like we have all these things going on, and there's a lot of distraction happening. So that's a first thing. Number 1 is awareness and presence. Number 2 is just get quiet, like take a step back. You don't have to make a decision right this second. You don't have to step in and do something right now. You don't have to react immediately. You can take a step back and respond. Okay. You can take a step back and you can just respond. So just pausing is great. Being aware, like to really tune into the energy. The third thing I would say is to name it, call it what it is. Like, okay, I'm having a feeling, I'm having an intuition, I'm getting a knowing. Actually acknowledge it. When you name it, when you acknowledge it, when you step into it, there's so much more power in it. Because when you start to do that, you start trusting the little intuitive hits. That's how your intuition builds. That's how it gets stronger. That's how you begin to trust yourself again, or to trust yourself for the first time, because maybe you were never taught to trust yourself at all, and especially not taught to trust your intuition. It's not been common in my experience working with women for 25 years that many women were taught to trust their intuition. Most of us are taught to trust other people, to trust other people that are in positions of power, which I just did a podcast last week on that exact topic. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go and watch that recording. That was last week's podcast. So when we're diving into our intuition, friends, I want to really encourage you to start paying attention, start asking, start taking, 5-10 minutes of presence, sit in meditation, sit in prayer, sit in silence, sit in stillness, sit in quiet, or walk. You can do those things and have some movement too. But the awareness is going to be the key that starts to help you. And it can be not only life altering, which it has been in my life multiple times, life saving also, which has also been in my life saving, listening to our intuition. And then, of course, when you start developing those skills and they get stronger and stronger, these are skills that can be built. You can absolutely develop your intuition, develop your psychic abilities. It is a muscle just like any other muscle, it has to be developed. You have to practice. I always encourage people to get into classes and programs and read the books are great, but without actual physical practice of it, it is very difficult to develop that muscle. I teach intuition classes every single week in my community, and it's how you start to build that to then, for many of you that have been following my channel that love like psychic investigation work, that love to be able to serve and help people with their own challenges and difficulties, learning to listen to your intuition is necessary in order to really support humanity, I think. So that we're not just following whatever happens to be in front of us. You're tapped in and you're tuned in to yourself, to your guidance, to your knowing, and you can then help others tune into theirs. So it absolutely is teachable. And if it's something that you're interested in, before we move into our heart to heart segment, which is where I take your live questions. If you have questions, start getting them ready, throw them in the chat, a couple question marks in front of them. So I know it's a question that you have for me for our heart to heart segment. I want to take a moment though to invite you to something that I have created on April 7th. I'm doing a free webinar that's actually on Meet Your Spirit Team. So if you're developing your psychic abilities and your intuitive skills, and you want to be able to understand and connect with those energies, those light beings around you, your angels, your guides, your loved ones in spirit, then this is going to be a free class that you can come and join called Meet Your Spirit Team. And it's going to be a powerful experience where you can begin to understand who's really supporting you, how you can discern the difference between the vibrational energies and how they show up for you, how to connect with them, and how to receive the guidance that you're looking for in a grounded, real way. So if today's conversation has opened up something in you, if it's gotten you excited, if you're wanting to develop those skills in deeper ways, then I would love for you to come and join us. And I'd say this is a next great step. Let me put the link up here for you to grab. And it's schooloflight.biz/webinar. Schooloflight.biz/webinar. You can grab that link there. Go get yourself registered, free class. I would absolutely love for you to come and join us. So now, friends, it is time for our heart to heart with Sunny. So this is a time where I take your questions, any question that you have about anything to do with life. There's no questions that are off limits. It's one of my favorite parts of our time together on our podcast. And the heart to heart segment brings this real conversation and connects it to real life, because I think so often we're afraid to ask questions because sometimes we're afraid of the answers, but sometimes it's also kind of keeping us protected, right? So if you ever want to submit a question, certainly if you're joining live, you can submit a question right now. And if you have a question that you want to ask me in advance, because you might not be able to be live at some point, then you can go to schooloflight.biz/heart to heart with Sunny, and you can ask your questions in advance there. I've had some questions that have come in advance, but we're going to dive into the heart to heart with Sunny segment now. So go ahead and throw your questions there, and let me move in.
Got a question on your mind, bring it to the light. Every heart has a story, we can talk it through tonight.
Okay, so my first question, which fits really perfectly with this topic: why do I feel other people's emotions so strongly? That's a good one. So we just talked about clairsentience, right? So clairsentience is that clear feeling. You're a feeler, you're sensitive. So you feel the energy, you feel the emotion of people around you. If you are somebody who has not learned how to hold your own energy, if you have not learned how to have energetic boundaries, if you were taught that you always need to be available to everyone all the time, if you have a tendency to be a fixer, then you could be somebody who carries other people's emotional energy. And that can get very, very heavy. I believe it actually can make us sick. And so, one of the things that I would suggest, so the question was, why do I do that? Well, because you're highly sensitive, which means that you could easily start tapping into your intuitive abilities to manage and maintain that energy. But it is a practice, it's something you have to learn, it's something you have to practice, it's something you have to develop. The first thing I would say, though, is I would start working with Archangel Michael. Now, remember, I'm an angel girl, so I'm always going to go to angels first. I would start working with Archangel Michael, asking him to come in and help you and support you in maintaining your own energy so you don't absorb the energy of other people. Okay. But that is why, because you're a sensitive person, and learning how to manage your energy consistently is a number one critical tool that I think everyone on the planet could benefit from. Maybe I should do a podcast on that. Actually, that might be a good idea too. Okay, let's see. Next question I got in advance. How do I set boundaries if I feel everything? Well, it's a really good question, because boundaries are going to be the only thing that's going to help you to not feel everything and to not feel everybody's everything. So, boundaries first, I'm going to say, are going to start with energetic boundaries. And that is your responsibility and your responsibility only. Meaning that no, it's not somebody else's job to make sure that you're energetically feeling good. It's your job to manage and maintain your own energy. And that's not an easy process, but it does take some practice, and it takes consistency. And you absolutely can do that. What I would suggest is that you start with the energetic boundaries. That will make the physical boundaries much easier to be able to manage. But if you don't know how to hold your own energy, you will not be able to manage physical boundaries either, because one affects the other. So it's kind of the same answer. Learning how to either call in Archangel Michael if you connect with angels and ask him to help you to manage and maintain your energy, or you can do a visualization of a color that feels soothing and safe to you. You can visualize yourself like stepping into that, like almost like a bubble of energy. And it's not, because we're not using the word, if you notice, I'm not using the word protecting. Protection is I think it keeps you in this push against. What we're doing is we're asking to maintain, we're holding our energy in. So like when I step into this bubble, like this is my energy field, my frequency. And my job is my energy field, not your energy field, just my energy field. In the webinar that we're going to be having on April 7th, I will talk a bit more about that. So I would highly suggest you come and join us for that as well. Okay. All right. Let me go and see what other questions we have here. So I attempted to locate the webinar, but not able to find it to register. Okay. So go to www.schooloflight.biz/webinar. Okay. I'll put the link up here one more time for you all to have it. Let me do it again. Okay, here you go. It's at the very bottom of the screen right there, my friend. Okay. Let's see. In Clairaudience, how does one distinguish their own higher voice from spirit? Those voices are going to be very similar. Your higher self voice is a direct connect to your soul. And so it's going to have a very similar frequency. I don't think you have to actually distinguish it, especially initially. If you're just learning, friends, how to start to discern the difference between the different frequencies, I wouldn't focus on separating them. I would focus on receiving the messages first. Then we can focus on it. And what it is it's frequency. That's how you will be able to distinguish between the two, but it takes a lot of practice to get there. So first, just open up to receiving the messages. That's a great question, Helen. Thank you so much for that. How can you tell the difference between an image that your mind makes up and an image that comes to your mind through intuition? An image that your mind makes up. Generally, the difference is going to be that if it's an image that your mind makes up, you've been thinking about it. So it's something you're thinking about. And so then you've got like these images, these visions that are coming to you. When it's something that's coming through your intuition, it pops in, like it comes to you from out of the blue for no reason. You weren't thinking about it. You weren't talking about it. You didn't just read something about it. It just popped in. So it comes in that way. That's usually how you tell the difference. In general. I hope that answers your question, my friend. Okay, let's see if we have time for one more question. No, we have time for a couple more maybe. I know when people die right away or a month later, but soon after, how? Sorry, my screen keeps moving. How does this work? Do they let me know? I know when people die right away or a month later, but soon after. How does this work? Do they? I'm not sure I understand your question, my friend. If you're asking like, how do they let you know in the spirit world? Um, they they can communicate with you literally once somebody has transitioned. They can communicate with you immediately. So there are some psychics, mediums that will say that, oh, they're busy. It's going to take 5 days or 5 weeks or a certain amount of time to be able to connect with them once they've transitioned. That absolutely is not the case. They can communicate immediately. And if they were out of body a lot before they died, they can actually communicate before they've even passed over, especially if they were in a coma or have like Alzheimer's or dementia, where they're mostly out of the body. They can communicate immediately. My grandfather passed away, and within minutes of him passing away, 3 different family members, the TVs went on and off in their bedrooms within minutes of him passing. I think it was like 1 minute after he passed. So absolutely, that is something that can happen and does happen on a regular basis. So they can communicate with you immediately. I hope that answered your question. I wasn't sure if I understood your question specifically. Okay. I lost contact with my sister. I'm 71. Haven't talked to her for the past 20 years. Can't find her. Is there somehow I can find her physically or psychically? So yes, you could tune in to and see if you can feel a connection with her. You can also work with a psychic medium, especially as somebody that does work in psychic investigation, that could maybe give you some clues as to either where she is, if she's living or deceased. That would be the first question, if she's living or deceased, and then help you to kind of start the process of connecting, not just psychically, but also physically. There's a lot of things you can do nowadays that you didn't used to be able to do to track somebody down. But absolutely, your psychic abilities can open that door, certainly. And if you aren't developed enough, if you're new or newer, and you're not new to intuition, everybody has it, but if you're newer to recognizing it, honoring it, listening to it, then I would encourage you to work with somebody that has some of those abilities, because they could certainly help. How can you tell the difference between an image that your mind makes up? Oh, I got that one. Okay, great. Where am I located? I am located in Phoenix, Arizona, Glendale, Arizona. Thank you for asking. All right, friends, I'd love to have you. Can you develop all of these other senses? Like, can you have them all at once? Absolutely, Christina, you certainly can. Developing these skills is something that the goal is to get you to a place where you're having experiences with all the different clairs. And absolutely you can. And there's even a couple extra clairs, but I'll throw those in on another class. I'll just keep to the basics. But absolutely you can develop all those skills, and you get to a place where what happens for me is usually my natural one is feeling. I'm a feeler first. but my feeling and my knowing kind of come together. And then oftentimes I'll get the visual, or I'll hear the message, and it's almost like an extra validation of that truth. So absolutely, you can have them all at once. That is common, especially as you've developed the skill. It's not usually going to be the way that it hits you immediately, right? But as you grow, absolutely. All right, friends. So I'm going to give you a little soul work, and I'd love to hear your takeaway from today. Was there something that you learned, something that's brought you some value that you want to share? Share it in the comments. It's always great, not only for you to kind of bring up and validate that what you learned, but also for our audience, for those that are watching. And if you got value from today's podcast, I would encourage you to, like it, share it, whether you are watching it right now live or whether you're watching it on replay. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube, you're watching it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Wherever you're watching it, please like and share. That's how we grow the audience. That's how we let other people know that we're here. And I'm so grateful to all of you for being here. And if you want to share one of the ways that your intuition shows up maybe over the next week, and then come back and let us know if you feel called, what showed up for you. All right. And again, if this conversation resonated with you, please be sure that you share it with others. All right, friends. So thank you so much. I am so grateful that you've all been here today. And as we come to a close, I want to just take a moment and thank you for showing up. Thank you for being willing to take an hour out of your day, whether you're live or you're watching the replay, to just pause and take in some new information and choosing awareness. I'm here every Tuesday, same time, same place here, but obviously I'm in a different place. I'm in my RV today. And if this episode supported you, thank you so much for the shares and the love. And remember, when we allow our divinity to guide our humanity, love becomes something that we live every day. You're not alone, my friend. Thank you for joining me. I love you, and I'll see you next time.
So self-service, that's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk, shine today.